The night exploded before Eli could even catch his breath. One moment, he was just a homeless kid looking for warmth, the next, bullets tore through the bar walls like thunder. In the chaos, an old biker grandma with a red vest lay trapped beneath shattered glass, her life fading fast. Eli had two options: run or risk everything for a stranger marked by danger. But the moment he reached for her, he unknowingly lit the fuse of a war. One that would bring 500 bikers to their knees before the night was over. Welcome to Echo Tales family. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because this story is going to reach deep into your heart. And to everyone who's been part of this community from the start, may God continue to bless you in powerful ways. Before we jump in, let's take a moment to pray together. Father, I ask that you watch over every person listening today. Bless their homes, strengthen their bodies, provide for every need, and cover them with peace that nothing can shake. Let your favor rest on them, and let them sense your presence right now. In Jesus' name, Amen. What you're about to hear is the story of a homeless boy who refused to walk away. Acting when no one refused to, he's stepping into the danger without thinking twice, risking everything to save her. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days straight. It turned the city streets into glistening rivers of dirt and motor oil. Every drop felt like a reminder to Eli that the world didn't care if he froze, drowned, or disappeared. He moved through the storm like a shadow in torn sneakers, clutching his backpack close, everything he owned sealed inside a plastic bag, 2 shirts, a cracked lighter, and the photograph of a woman whose smile had faded with the years. He whispered to himself through chattering teeth, "Just find a place to stay dry." Just one night. His breath fogged the air as he pushed deeper into the neon glow of old Route 17. The flicker of a half-dead sign caught his eye, Miller's Bar, it read, the red letters bleeding through the rain. If you're watching this right now, take a second to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. It helps stories like this reach more people. Now, stay with me, because what's about to happen inside this bar will stick with you. Eli hesitated by the door, the muffled thump of a jukebox leaking through the cracks. The building looked tired, kind of like him, with fogged windows and peeling paint. The air inside smelled of beer, smoke, and gasoline. A few regulars hunched over their drinks, barely talking, eyes dulled by old regrets. He slipped into a corner booth, invisible among the noise. He pulled the hood tighter around his face and thawed his fingers on a leftover mug of coffee. Nobody looked twice. Just another stray kid in a place built for the broken. Then he saw her. At the far end of the counter sat an old woman with silver hair tucked beneath a faded red bandana. Leather gloves rested beside her coffee cup, and her worn vest carried the unmistakable patch, Hell's Angels MC. Her eyes, clear, gray-blue, held the kind of calm only earned by surviving too much of life. A broad biker behind the counter called her Mama Red as he refilled her cup. She nodded once, her attention somewhere beyond the rain-streaked windows. Eli couldn't tell why, but something about her hit him deep, like she carried all the fire he'd long since lost. The jukebox flipped tracks, an old rock song rattling the glass, and Eli noticed them, 3 men seated near the door, dressed in black leather, silent, watching. One's fingers tapped the table beside a concealed pistol. They weren't drinking. They were waiting. Mama Red noticed too. Her hand slid near the revolver by the napkin holder. The bartender froze, eyes darting between them. The air thickened, that split second before something terrible always happens. Eli's breathing grew shallow. His body remembered this rhythm, the hum of danger, the helplessness before the flash. He saw it again, his mother on that dark stairwell years ago, a scream, a gunshot, and silence. He'd sworn never to step between men and violence again. The first bullet shattered the jukebox. The bar erupted. Screams tangled with breaking glass as bullets ripped through liquor bottles and neon lights. People hit the floor, ducking behind tables. The smell of gunpowder burned through the air. Mama Red collapsed behind the bar, clutching her bleeding shoulder. Eli froze, heart slamming against his ribs. The world blurred in slow motion, a haze of flashes, shouting, crashing wood. He could have run. He should have. But then he heard her groan, soft and human amidst the chaos. Something inside him snapped. He crawled forward, keeping low, sliding across spilled beer and broken glass. "Hold on," he whispered, grabbing her under the arms. "Leave me," she hissed through clenched teeth, voice brittle but fierce. "Not happening." He dragged her behind a fallen table, pressing her vest against the wound. Her patch soaked crimson. He met her eyes, a frail fire still flickering there. "You're just a kid," she muttered. "Guess I picked the wrong bar." The shooting slowed, replaced by the click of reloading magazines. Eli glimpsed one of the gunmen crouched by the doorway, shouting orders to the other two. This wasn't random. It was an execution. Sirens wailed faintly from the distance, salvation or storm, Eli couldn't tell. The gunman cursed, nerves rising. Eli tightened his grip around Mama Red's arm. "We can make it through the kitchen," he said, glancing toward the back. She grimaced and nodded toward the front door. "My bike's there. Keys in my pocket." Eli blinked at her, disbelief cutting through his fear. "You can't be serious. Go." She winced as another series of shots shredded a row of bottles above them. He fumbled inside her vest, found the cold keys, and hoisted her up. They scrambled through the smoke and splinters toward the back hallway. The walls rattled under the rain of bullets behind them. Outside, lightning painted the parking lot in flashes of white. Rows of motorcycles gleamed in puddles, ghostly and wet. They staggered toward a red Harley with angel wings on the gas tank. Eli slid her onto the seat and felt the weight of the keys like a lifeline in his hand, but the roar of an engine made him freeze. A black van spun around the corner, headlights slicing through the downpour. Doors flew open. Gunmen shouted, spreading out across the lot. Eli ducked behind the bike, pulling Mama Red close. "How many?" he whispered. "Too many," she rasped, her breath shallow. One of the voices cut through the rain. "Don't let the kid leave alive." Eli's chest seized. The kid. They weren't here for her. They were here for him. Mama Red's hand clenched his wrist. "Listen to me," she said, eyes locking his. "You run. Don't stop." He shook his head. "Not without you. Tell Razor," her voice faltered, soft but desperate. "Tell him it wasn't supposed to happen this way." Before he could ask what she meant, a bullet struck the post beside them, spraying wood chips through the rain. The shout of the gunman grew closer. Eli's blood flooded with adrenaline. Something primal woke inside, the part that had run from everything long enough. He yanked Mama Red onto the Harley, twisted the throttle, and the engine roared to life louder than the storm. Bullets chased them as the tires screamed down the street. Neon lights streaked past like burning ghosts. The cold rain bit his face as the city fell behind them and only black highway stretched ahead. 5 miles later, the motorcycle began to sputter. The gas tank nearly empty. Mama Red leaned heavily against him, her breath faint as mist. "Stay with me," he whispered, shaking her arm. No response. He pulled over, heart pounding, the world around him dissolving into rain and silence. Her vest, the angel patch, was torn and riddled. Something slid from the lining and landed on his leg. A photograph, damp and creased. He picked it up with trembling fingers and froze. It was him. A younger version, smiling, confused, standing beside his mother. And on the back of the photo, a handwritten note. For Razor. Protect the boy. Eli's breath hitched, his mind spinning as the sirens finally neared. For years, he'd run from the ghosts of his past. But tonight, he'd stumbled right back into their open arms. Sirens carved through the rain-soaked night as Eli's stolen Harley tore down the highway, its engine screaming like a wounded animal. His fingers were numb around the handlebars, knuckles white, eyes burning from cold wind and the shock of what he'd just lived through. Mama Red lay slumped against his back, her weight heavy and frighteningly still. In his pocket, the photograph he'd found in her vest burned like a secret against his thigh. His own face smiling beside his mother, and a message on the back meant for a man he'd never met, Razor. The city lights shrank behind him, swallowed by darkness and sheets of rain. Neon gave way to highway reflectors and the distant orange glow of industrial towers. Every breath felt like broken glass in his lungs. He didn't know where he was going, only that he had to get her help before the warmth leaving her skin turned to something he couldn't fix. If stories like this grip you the way Eli's chest was pounding now, hit like and subscribe so you never miss the next twist in his life. The engine coughed, sputtered, then settled into a strained growl as he followed a blue hospital sign glowing through the storm like a lifeline. He took the exit too fast, tires hissing across puddles, and pulled under the harsh white lights of the emergency entrance. Killing the engine, he fought to ease Mama Red off the bike, almost dropping her as his arms shook from cold and adrenaline. "Hey! I need help!" Eli shouted toward the sliding doors. "She's been shot." For one long, terrifying second, nothing moved. Then the doors burst open, and 3 nurses rushed out with a gurney, their voices cutting the night with codes and commands he didn't understand. Hands pulled her away from him, fluorescent light flashed off metal and glass. Eli stumbled after them, soaked and shaking, his brain lagging behind the speed of the chaos. A security guard stepped in front of him, one arm outstretched. "You can't go back there, kid." Eli blinked up through dripping lashes. She got shot because of me. I have to know if she's okay." The guard eyed his soaked hoodie, torn jeans, and the blood smeared across his hands. "You involved in what happened?" "I." Gunfire echoed in his head, the memory of men shouting not to let the kid leave alive. "I don't know. I swear I don't know why they wanted me." "Stay in the waiting area," the guard said, voice firm but not cruel. Doctors will do what they can. The doors swung shut, cutting off the frantic movement of the trauma bay. Eli found himself under harsh white lights in a waiting room that smelled of antiseptic and burnt coffee. Plastic chairs lined the walls. A TV in the corner ran the news on mute: traffic, weather, normal life, nothing that made sense to the boy dripping on the tile floor. He dropped into a chair, wet clothes clinging to his skin, cold sinking into his bones. One hand drifted to his pocket, fingers closing around the damp photograph. He pulled it out and smoothed it open with shaking hands. There he was, younger, clean, smiling awkwardly at the camera with his mother's arm wrapped around his shoulders. On the back, in familiar handwriting, "For Razor. Protect the boy." He mouthed the words silently, throat tight. "Who are you, Razor?" he whispered. "And why did she have this?" A shadow slid over him. "That's what we'd like to know too." Eli's head snapped up. Two uniformed police officers stood in front of him, rainwater still clinging to their jackets. The older one, gray streaking his hair and deep lines etched around his eyes, held a small notebook. The younger rested a hand near his holster, watching Eli like he might take off running. "Name," the older officer said. "Eli." His voice came out hoarse. "Eli Carter. You know the woman they just brought in?" "They called her Mama Red," Eli said. "She got shot in the bar." The officers exchanged a look. "You were with her when the shooting started?" "Yes." "How many shooters?" "3 inside," Eli answered slowly, replaying the scene. "More outside?" "They came in ready." "No arguing. They just started firing." The younger cop leaned in, eyes sharp. "And why were they yelling not to let the kid leave alive? You have enemies we should know about?" Eli's throat tightened. "I don't know. I swear I don't know why they wanted me." The older officer's gaze dropped to the photo in Eli's hand. "That picture, who's in it?" "My mom," Eli said quietly. "And me." "Where is she now?" "Dead." The word scraped his lungs on the way out. "Years ago." Wrong place, wrong people. For a heartbeat, something softened in the officer's face, then hardened back into duty. "You run with any gangs?" "Clubs." Eli shook his head. "I sleep under bridges and behind diners. That's the only club I'm in." Before the officer could respond, the glass doors at the entrance rattled with a deep, rolling thunder that didn't come from the storm. "Engines." The younger cop turned, frowning. "What now?" Headlights swept across the wet parking lot as a line of motorcycles rolled in, engines growling like caged animals. Bikes pulled in 2 by 2, forming tight rows. Leather vests shone under the streetlights, all marked with the same patch, winged skull and red and white colors, Hell's Angels. The waiting room froze. Nurses paused with charts in hand. The receptionist's fingers hovered above the keyboard. Even the security guard shifted, planting his feet closer to the entrance. Eli's heart hammered. "They're here for her," he murmured. The older officer cursed under his breath. "Exactly the kind of circus we don't need tonight." The automatic doors slid open. The air seemed to drop a few degrees as the man in front stepped inside. Broad shoulders filled his vest, gray threaded through his beard, eyes like sharpened steel in the fluorescent light. His rocker patch read, Razor, President. Eli forgot how to breathe. Razor. The name from the back of the photograph. The man his mother had written to like a last prayer. Razor scanned the room once, over the officers, nurses, security, every face, then stopped on Eli. His gaze settled there, heavy, measuring, like he was weighing the boy's entire life in one look. You the kid who brought Mama Red in? Razor's voice was low, rough, controlled. Eli forced himself to stand. His legs trembled, but he met Razor's eyes. Yeah. Razor took one step closer. The officers tensed but didn't move. She's my family, Razor said. My old lady's mother. His jaw clenched. Tell me exactly what happened in that bar. Eli swallowed and told him, about the rain, the jukebox, the three men who never ordered drinks, the first shot, dragging Mama Red through broken glass. His voice shook at the start but steadied as he went on. Razor didn't interrupt once. More bikers crowded the doorway, faces carved with grief and rage, but they stayed silent. When Eli finished, the room fell into a tight, expectant quiet. Razor's eyes dropped to the photograph still clutched in Eli's hand. What's that? Eli looked down at it, suddenly unsure. It was in her vest, he said. Fell out when we got on the bike. He offered it with trembling fingers. Razor took the photo carefully, like it might bite. The moment his eyes landed on it, his expression cracked, shock first, then something raw, almost painful. His thumb traced the outline of the woman in the picture. Where did you get this? Razor's voice dropped, the control fraying around the edges. My mom gave it to someone years ago, Eli said. Said if anything happened to her, there was a man out there who owed her. A man named Razor. A murmur rippled through the bikers behind him. Razor shut his eyes for a brief second, as if bracing against a punch from the past. When he opened them, there was a storm raging inside. She kept your name from me, Razor muttered. All these years. He studied Eli like he was seeing him clearly for the first time. Your mother was important to me. Before the club. Before all of this. Eli's chest ached. She told me there was nobody left, he whispered. That everyone was gone. She was lying, Razor said quietly. To protect you. The older officer cleared his throat. That's touching, he said, but we still have a bar full of bodies and questions. We need statements. And we need to know who those men were gunning for. Razor's eyes snapped sideways to the officer. They were gunning for him. He nodded at Eli. You heard them. So did Mama Red. Eli felt the whole room shift, every gaze pinning him like a spotlight. Officers, bikers, hospital staff, all waiting for an explanation he didn't have. I don't understand, Eli said, voice barely above a whisper. Why me? Razor seemed to choose his next words slowly, as if each one carried weight. Because there are people who never wanted you to grow up, he said. People who were sure that if you survived, you'd start looking for answers they don't want you to have. A chill skated up Eli's spine. What answers? Razor didn't respond. His jaw flexed once, and he turned toward the trauma doors instead. First, he said, voice rougher now, I need to know if Mama Red is alive. At that moment, a doctor pushed through the doors, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. Razor crossed the room in 3 strides, the bikers parting around him like a tide. Eli's pulse hammered so hard he felt it in his teeth, the moment tightening like a drawn bowstring. If your heart's thudding the way Eli's is right now, stay locked in, because what comes next will change everything he thinks he knows. The doctor looked between Razor, the officers, and then Eli. "We managed to stabilize her," he said. "But she's in critical condition. She keeps drifting in and out." He hesitated. "She's asking for the boy." Every biker head turned toward Eli. Razor's stare burned straight through him. "You heard him," Razor said quietly. "Mama Red wants you." Eli's heartbeat roared in his ears as the doctor motioned him forward. He stepped toward the swinging doors, feeling the weight of 100 eyes and 100 unspoken questions. His fingers brushed the inside of his pocket, where the ghost of his mother's handwriting still waited on the back of that photo. The doors swung open, flooding him with the sterile brightness of the trauma ward. Eli had no idea that across town, in the shadows of a warehouse lit by a single flickering bulb, the men who'd fired those first shots were already watching his hospital on a grainy screen. And one of them wore a leather cut with the same colors Razor had on his back. Eli followed the doctor through the swinging doors, the noise of the waiting room fading behind him like someone turning down the volume on the world. The air back here was colder, sharper, humming with machines and distant voices. Harsh white light washed every shadow from the hallway, but somehow, it still felt like walking deeper into the dark. Each step sounded too loud on the polished floor. His wet sneakers squeaked, leaving a faint trail of water. His heart didn't seem to understand he was supposed to be safe now. It kept hammering like bullets were still flying, like Mama Red might vanish if he moved too slow. Somewhere behind him, Razor and the officers kept pace, boots and duty shoes echoing like a mismatched drumline. If you want to see how deep this story goes, like and subscribe before the next blow lands, because every step Eli takes now pulls him closer to a truth people have already tried to kill him for. The doctor stopped outside a room with a glass panel. Machines beeped steadily inside, their lights reflecting in the window like tiny, unsteady stars. Mama Red lay on the bed, smaller somehow, swallowed by white sheets and wires. The red bandana was gone. Silver hair spread over the pillow like a halo that had been through hell. "She lost a lot of blood," the doctor said quietly. "We patched what we could. The next 24 hours are critical." His eyes flicked to Eli. "She keeps asking for you. Just a few minutes, all right? Don't stress her." Eli nodded, throat too tight to answer. Razor's large hand settled briefly on his shoulder, surprisingly gentle for a man built like a wall. "Go on, kid," Razor murmured. "She doesn't ask for much. When she does, you listen." Eli stepped into the room. The door clicked softly behind him, shutting out the hallway's murmurs. The smell of antiseptic wrapped around him, mixing with something metallic and raw. He moved to her bedside slowly, feeling like an intruder in a moment that didn't belong to him. Up close, she looked older than she had at the bar. Every wrinkle seemed deeper, every line around her eyes carved by years of smiling through pain and staring danger in the face. Her hand, resting on the blanket, twitched once, fingers stained faintly red where the nurses hadn't quite cleaned all the blood away. "Ma. Mama Red," he whispered. Her eyelids fluttered, then opened, gray-blue irises unfocused for a heartbeat before sharpening on him. Despite everything, she smiled, small, weak, but real. "Knew you'd make it," she rasped. "You ride like your mother." The word stole Eli's breath. You knew her." "My mom." Mama Red's gaze drifted to the ceiling for a moment, chasing something only she could see. "We all knew her," she said. "Some of us better than others." A hint of mischief sparked in her tired eyes. "Razor most of all." Eli glanced toward the glass. Razor stood there watching, jaw clenched, eyes unreadable. Bikers flanked him like shadows. "Why did those men want me dead?" Eli asked, voice trembling. "They kept shouting about the kid." "That's me, right? What did I do?" Her hand twitched on the blanket, fingers curling as if trying to grab a memory before it slipped away. "You didn't do anything," she whispered. "You were born. That's all it took." Eli swallowed hard. "That doesn't make sense." "Your mother was part of a life she tried to walk away from," Mama Red said. "And when she left, she didn't leave empty-handed." Eli's hand went to his pocket automatically, feeling the outline of the photograph. "This?" Mama Red's eyes softened. "She kept that picture with her for years," she said. "A reminder of why she refused to come back." "Back where?" Eli pressed. "To who?" Her gaze flicked toward the window again. Razor shifted, as if he could feel the weight of being talked about without hearing the words. "To him," she said. "To Razor. To the club. To all of us." Eli's mind reeled. "So my mom was one of you?" "She was more than that," Mama Red said, voice thinning. "She was the reason Razor believed he had a future that wasn't just chrome and blood." She looked at him again, something like pride in her fading eyes. "You're the reason she ran." His head spun. "You're telling me Razor is—" "Careful," she cut in, a wry smile ghosting across her lips. "Some truths you only say once." She coughed, the movement racking her frail frame. The heart monitor blipped faster for a few beats. Eli grabbed her hand. "I pulled you out of that bar," he said. "I might have gotten you shot. Why did you shield me?" Her fingers squeezed his weakly. "Because your mother asked me to," she whispered. "Years ago. She told me if the day ever came, if you ever crossed our path," her eyes shone with unshed tears. "She made me promise to do for you what nobody did for her." Heat pricked behind Eli's eyelids. "Protect the boy," he murmured, remembering the scrawl on the back of the picture. She smiled faintly. "You're smarter than Razor was at your age." The door opened a crack. Razor stepped in, ducking his head slightly under the frame, the room suddenly feeling smaller with his presence. "How is she?" Razor asked the doctor, who hovered just outside. "Holding on," the doctor said. "But don't push her too hard." Razor moved to the other side of the bed. For a moment, the hard edges dropped from his face. He brushed a stray strand of silver hair from Mama Red's forehead with a tenderness that didn't fit a man with scars on his knuckles and a President rocker on his chest. "You've made a mess tonight, old girl," he said softly. She smirked weakly. "Look who's talking." Razor's eyes flicked to Eli. We'll talk, he said. But not while she's fighting to breathe. Mama Red's gaze sharpened. No, she rasped. You need to talk while I can still set you both straight. Razor sighed, resigned, like a man who'd lost this argument many times before. You don't get to boss me from a hospital bed. She gave him a look that said she absolutely did. He deserves to know why men with guns were hunting him, she said. And you deserve to say what you never did before she died. Eli's pulse spiked. Before who died? Silence thickened between them. Razor broke it first, his voice low and hoarse. Your mother, he said. Before your mother died. The words hit like a punch. Hearing them from his mouth made it real in a way it hadn't been in years. Eli stared at him, searching for a lie and finding none. Why do you care? Eli asked. Why did she send this to you? He pulled the photograph from his pocket and held it out. Razor took it like it was made of glass. His thumb traced Eli's mother's face, and for the first time, raw grief cracked his composure. Because I loved her, Razor said simply. No drama, no swagger. Just truth. And because I'm the reason she had to run. The heart monitor beeped faster. Mama Red's gaze flicked between them, as if she were watching a wound finally being opened so it could heal. You think this is a coincidence, she whispered. That a homeless boy walked into the one bar where my colors were flying. Fate doesn't waste nights like this. Eli wanted answers. But a knot of dread twisted in his gut, warning that the more he learned, the less safe he'd ever be. In the hallway, a loud voice cut through the hum of machines. The younger officer from the waiting room was arguing with someone, his tone sharp, frustrated. I don't care how many bikes they've got outside, he snapped. This is still an active investigation. We've got shell casings, bodies, and no ID on the shooters. Someone in there knows more than they're saying. Razor's eyes hardened. They're circling, he muttered. We need to move fast. Mama Red's grip tightened painfully around Eli's fingers. Listen to me, she said. Those men in the bar. They weren't just some rival crew playing cowboy. They were paid. Bought. By who? Eli asked. Her lips parted, but the monitor suddenly spiked. She gasped, chest heaving, eyes rolling as pain ripped through her. Doc. Razor barked, voice booming. Get in here. The door burst open. Nurses rushed in, the doctor right behind them, barking orders. Eli stumbled back, pressed into the corner as bodies closed around the bed. Razor was gently but firmly pushed aside. Heart rates unstable, a nurse shouted. She's going into arrhythmia. Eli's mind raced. He couldn't lose her, not now, not after she'd pulled back the first layer of the life he never knew he had. Razor stood rigid by the wall, fists clenched so tight his knuckles went white. Out, the doctor ordered. Both of you. Now. A nurse guided Eli toward the door. Another herded Razor out with a hand on his arm, the only person in this building brave enough to touch him without invitation. The door clicked shut behind them, cutting off the frantic voices inside. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Razor stared at the closed door like he could will it to open and give him good news. Eli stared at his own shaking hands. In the distance, Thunder rumbled again, or maybe it was the restless churn of engines outside. "We're not done," Razor said eventually, voice rough. "She's right. You deserve to know why someone wants you dead." Eli swallowed. "Then tell me." Razor looked down the corridor, as if measuring who might be listening. Officers at the far end pretended not to watch. A nurse's footsteps echoed away. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. "Not here," Razor muttered. "Walls have ears. And some of those ears have badges." He turned, motioning for Eli to follow him back toward the waiting area. As they walked, a nurse rushed the opposite way, wheeling a cart. Somewhere behind them, the trauma room door opened again, but no one called after them, no one said she was stable, no one said anything at all. The waiting room had changed. More bikers now, some sitting, some pacing, others staring out at the parking lot crowded with chrome and restless headlights. The air buzzed with barely leashed anger and fear. Razor led Eli to a quiet corner, away from officers and curious eyes. He leaned against the wall, arms folded across his chest, looking both exhausted and wired. "Your mother was caught in the middle of a war she didn't start," Razor said. "Between our club and some people who wanted what we had. Territory. Money. Control. Black vultures," Eli said, remembering the voice in the bar taking credit. Razor's jaw tightened. "Yeah. Them. And some others who like to pretend they don't get their hands dirty." Eli frowned. "What does that have to do with me?" "Everything," Razor said. "Because your mother didn't just walk away. She took proof with her. Evidence. Names, dates, deals. Stuff that could bury the men who'd rather burn the world than see a courtroom." Eli's heartbeat kicked up again. "And they think she gave it to me?" "They don't know what she did with it," Razor said. "All they know is she had a kid she'd die for. So they're betting she hid it somewhere you'd eventually find it, or that someone like me might help you." The weight of it settled on Eli's shoulders like a physical thing. He thought of every night he'd gone hungry, every doorway he'd slept in, every close call in alleys and shelters. Had all of it been luck, or had shadows been watching him all along, waiting for him to make the wrong move? Outside, a bike revved, loud and impatient. Another engine answered like a growl. The hospital windows rattled faintly in their frames. "If they were watching her," Eli said slowly, "how did she even get away?" Razor's gaze drifted past him, lost somewhere in a memory heavy enough to bend his shoulders. "Because she didn't run alone," he said. "Because some of us still remembered what loyalty meant, even when the club forgot." Eli opened his mouth to ask more, but a sharp chime broke through the room. Every biker stiffened. Every head turned as the overhead PA system crackled to life, the hospital's bland voice cutting through the tension. "Code Blue, Trauma 2. Code Blue, Trauma 2. Razor went utterly still. Eli's stomach dropped. He didn't know the codes, but he understood that tone. Trauma 2 was Mama Red's room. One of the bikers whispered, "No." Razor pushed off the wall so fast the chair beside him rattled. He didn't wait for permission. He didn't look at the officers rising to stop him. He was already moving for the doors. Razor didn't wait for permission. The moment "Code Blue, Trauma 2" echoed through the speakers, he was already moving, boots hammering against the tile as if the floor itself might give way beneath him. Eli was right behind him, legs pumping to keep up, lungs burning. The waiting room blurred past, nurses, bikers, officers, all dissolving into streaks of color as he chased Razor toward the trauma wing. The hallway ahead flared with harsh white light. A nurse tried to block Razor's path, but he brushed past her like she was made of air. Eli slipped through the gap before the doors swung shut again. The sound of frantic voices and machine alarms slammed into him, louder with every step, pulling him toward the room where Mama Red was fighting for her life. If stories like this have you hooked already, like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next for Eli, Razor, and everyone tied to the bullets that flew in that bar. Trauma 2 was a storm of movement. A nurse pumped at Mama Red's chest, arms working in brutal, steady rhythm. Another squeezed air into her lungs through a mask. The doctor barked out orders, voice sharp over the chaos. The heart monitor that had once beeped steadily was now a jagged, angry line dancing at the edge of flat. "Sir, you can't be in here," someone snapped at Razor. He ignored them. Razor planted himself just inside the doorway, massive frame trembling with a tension Eli could feel from across the room. His hands flexed helplessly at his sides. For the first time since Eli met him, Razor looked like a man who didn't know whether to swing, scream, or fall apart. "Come on, old girl," Razor muttered under his breath. "Don't you dare cash out on me now." Eli hovered near the wall, back pressed against cold tile, heart racing. He wanted to rush forward, to grab her hand, to shout her name, but there was no room for him in this whirlwind of life and death. All he could do was watch and feel the weight of every second. "Charge to 200, the doctor ordered. "Clear." The defibrillator paddles hit her chest. Her body jerked violently. The monitor stuttered, searching for a rhythm. Nothing. Eli's stomach twisted. Razor's jaw clenched, a muscle ticking in his cheek. Again, the doctor snapped. "Charge to 300. Clear." Another jolt. Another jerking, fragile body fighting to stay. The monitor blipped erratically, then caught, just barely, a thin, hesitant rhythm, like a tired drum refusing to fall silent. "There it is," a nurse breathed. "We've got something." "Keep her on it," the doctor said, voice dropping from frantic to focused. "Stabilize and prep for ICU." The storm slowly unwound. The alarms quieted. The room cooled from fever pitch to something fragile and exhausted. Mama Red lay motionless, chest rising and falling with the help of the machine, her face even paler than before. Razor turned away, one hand covering his eyes for a second. When he dropped it, his gaze went straight to Eli. "Come on," he said quietly. "We're in everyone's way here." They stepped out into the hallway together. The door closed behind them with a soft click that felt far too gentle for what had just happened inside. For a moment, neither spoke. Nurses moved around them, the hospital going on with its endless work, but for Eli, everything had shrunk down to one room and one woman's fading heartbeat. "Is she?" Eli couldn't finish the question. "Alive," Razor said. "Barely." He leaned against the wall, eyes closing briefly. "She's tougher than she looks. She's cheated death more times than I can count. But this," he exhaled slowly. "This is different." Eli stared at the floor. Guilt gnawed at him. She got shot because she covered me, he said. If I hadn't been there. If you hadn't been there, she'd have died alone in a bar with no one to see her fall, Razor cut in. You got her here. That counts. He didn't say it with softness, he said it like a verdict. Eli let the words sit in the space between them. Down the hall, the older officer, the one who'd questioned Eli, stood in quiet conversation with another detective. Both kept glancing Razor's way, calculating. Bikers gathered at the far end of the corridor, restless energy radiating off them like static. This hospital's about to turn into a war zone, Razor muttered. Cops on one side, my brothers on the other, and you stuck in the middle with questions nobody wants answered. Eli swallowed. So answer them. Razor studied him for a long moment. You're more like her than I thought, he said. Too stubborn to let a lie live in your head. He pushed off the wall. We can't fix everything tonight, he said. But we can decide what happens next. Eli frowned. What do you mean? Those men in the bar. Razor said. They were probing. Testing. They wanted to see how fast we'd move and how much we know. That means this isn't over. It's just started. Eli's skin crawled. You're saying they'll come here? Razor's gaze slid to a security camera in the corner, the red light winking steadily. If they're smart, they're already watching. Waiting for a moment like this, when we're tired, split up, distracted. Eli thought of the grainy security feed he'd seen in shelters and bus stations. Somewhere out there, in some warehouse or back room, men with guns could be staring at this very hallway, at him, at Razor. At Mama Red's door. What do they want me to do? Eli asked. Run. Hide. Just disappear again. Razor looked at him, and for the first time, his answer wasn't an order, it was a choice. What do you want? Nobody had asked him that in years. Maybe ever. Eli thought about it, really thought about it. About nights under bridges, stomach empty, ears tuned to every footstep. About his mother's face, fading in his memory. About Mama Red dragging him toward the bike despite the bullets. About the words on the back of the photo, protect the boy. I'm tired of running, he said. His voice shook, but the words didn't. But I'm not stupid. If I stay with you, they come for us. If I run, they still come. Only now I'm alone. Razor nodded once, as if that lined up with something he'd always known this kid would say. Then you don't run, Razor said. You stand where you've got people watching your back. People who owe your mother more than a memory and a picture. Eli's chest tightened. Why do you owe her? Razor's eyes went distant. Because she walked away from a war that would have eaten her alive, he said. And because when she left, she gave me a choice. Keep dragging the club into hell with me, or try to claw us out. He looked at Eli. I didn't choose fast enough, he added. And she died before I could prove I was worth that second chance. The weight of that hung between them, Razor's regret, Eli's confusion, Mama Red's fragile hope. So what now? Eli asked. Now, Razor said, I make a choice I should have made a long time ago. They walked back toward the waiting room together. As they entered, every biker's head turned. Conversations died mid-word. Eyes tracked Razor, then slid to Eli. It felt like stepping onto a stage neither of them had rehearsed for. Razor stopped in the center of the room. He didn't raise his voice, but it carried anyway. "Listen up," he said. "You all know what happened tonight." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, anger, fear, grief. "We've got a bar shot to pieces, brothers bleeding, and Mama Red hanging on by a thread," Razor continued. "We've got cops sniffing around like they own the air in this building. And we've got a kid they tried to put in the ground before he even knew why he was in their crosshairs." Eyes landed on Eli again, heavier this time. "This is Eli Carter," Razor said. The name felt like it dropped a weight on the room. "He's not just some stray who wandered into our mess. He's the son of someone this club failed. Someone I failed." A few older bikers stiffened, glancing at each other. They knew who he was talking about, even if they didn't say her name. "The people who hit that bar tonight," Razor went on. "They weren't just settling scores. They were sending a message. They wanted us rattled. They wanted this kid erased. That means whatever his mother died to protect is still out there. And if we don't find it before they do, more of us are going to end up under white sheets." One of the bikers, stocky, scarred, with a patch that read Diesel, stepped forward. His eyes were cold, calculating. "So what?" Diesel asked. "We're babysitters now. For some kid nobody knew existed yesterday." Razor's gaze cut to him, sharp. "We're not babysitting," he said. "We're honoring a debt." Diesel scoffed. "We honor our own, Razor. Not ghosts." Tension crackled through the room. A few bikers shifted uneasily. Others watched with interest, sensing the fault line. Eli felt the air turn heavy. Diesel's stare flicked to him, and in that look, Eli saw something that made his skin prick. Not just annoyance. Not just doubt. Recognition. Diesel knew his name before tonight. Razor must have seen it too. His eyes narrowed very slightly. "Got something you want to say plain, Diesel?" Diesel shrugged. "Just wondering when we started letting unknowns drag the club into old drama," he said. "We've got enough enemies without raising one more under our roof." "Funny," Razor said softly, "how fast you assume he's a liability when you haven't heard everything yet." Eli could feel something shifting under the surface, like the floor had hairline cracks no one talked about. The older officer approached cautiously, cutting through the circle. "This isn't a clubhouse," he said. "You want to hold church, do it somewhere that's not my crime scene." Razor didn't look at him. "You got what you needed from the kid?" he asked. "Not even close," the officer replied. "But I've got enough to know he's in danger. We can put him under protective custody. Keep him somewhere safe where you and your enemies can't turn him into a trophy body." Every biker bristled at that. Eli felt it like heat on his skin. Razor finally turned his head, eyes hard. "Your protective custody couldn't even keep bullets out of a bar on a rainy night," Razor said. "No disrespect, officer, but if they want him that bad, they'll walk right through whatever paperwork you throw between them and his skull." The officer stared at Eli. "You don't owe these men anything," he said. "Whatever your mother was, whatever she did, you get to choose a different life. Right now." Eli felt two worlds stretching him in opposite directions. On one side, law, procedure, a thin promise of safety behind locks and schedules. On the other, engines, leather, loyalty that tasted like danger and truth mixed together. He thought of his mother again. Of the nights she'd held him close and whispered that they'd get out someday, that he'd be free of the shadows that followed her. He thought of Mama Red, throwing her body between his and flying bullets. He thought of Razor, eyes cracking open with grief at a single photograph. "I don't want to hide in some room while other people die because of me," Eli said quietly. "I'm done running." The officer sighed, frustration etched into his face. "You're a kid," he said. "Yeah," Eli replied. "And kids grow up. One way or another." Razor's mouth lifted in the smallest hint of a smile. It wasn't pride exactly, more like recognition. "So what'll it be?" Razor asked, voice low enough that only Eli and those closest could hear. "You walk out with him, badge and all. Or you walk out with me, and the club becomes the wall between you and whatever's coming." Eli looked between them. The officer's eyes held concern. Razor's held fire. Behind Razor, the line of bikers looked ready to follow him straight into hell if that's where he walked. That choice hanging in front of Eli right now felt like the kind of crossroads that defines a life. If you've ridden with him this far, tap that like, hit subscribe, and stay close. Because whichever road he chooses, it's going to cost him. Eli drew a slow breath. His fingers brushed the photograph in his pocket, his mother's face, frozen in time beside his younger self. The words on the back pressed against his skin, "Protect the boy." He lifted his head. "She didn't ask you to protect me so I could hide," he said to Razor. "She asked you to protect me so I could survive long enough to finish what she started." Razor's eyes glinted. "You sure you're ready for that?" "No," Eli said honestly. "But I'm more scared of doing nothing than doing the wrong thing." The officer stepped back, reading the answer in Eli's posture before the words even ended. "You're making a mistake," he said. "Maybe," Eli replied. "But it's mine to make." Razor clapped a hand on his shoulder, solid and grounding. "Then you ride with us," he said. "We'll dig up what your mother left behind, and we'll make sure the people who tried to erase her regret every shot they fired." Eli nodded. For the first time in years, the idea of us didn't feel like a threat. It felt like armor. Outside the hospital windows, the engines of 100 bikes rumbled in restless unison, a storm on idle. Inside, under humming fluorescent lights, a broken family began to stitch itself around a kid who'd walked into the wrong bar on the wrong night, and found the truth he'd been running from his whole life. As Eli turned toward the doors, ready to walk into a world where every mile would carry risk and every answer would demand a price, he knew one thing with absolute clarity. He wasn't running anymore. He was riding straight into the fire, with a photograph in his pocket, a brotherhood at his back, and a past that refused to stay buried waiting just over the next horizon.